PR Connections Radio presents
Welcome to PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media, here on Vegas Hockey Hub. I'm your host, Ian Rachiele, and on this edition of Vegas Hockey Hub Recap, where we break down everything involving your Vegas Golden Knights, we're going to be talking about the most recent matchup that happened between the Anaheim Ducks and the Vegas Golden Knights. And this was a game that happened. That's really all you can say about this. This was a game that just happened, all right? There really wasn't a lot of positives. It's just something that... Before we break down this game, go to www.prconnectionsradio.com, the voice of new media, and check out all the amazing content we have on the network. We have about a dozen shows on our platform, so go to our website and watch all of the amazing content on our platform. Also, go to our social media pages. We are on all major platforms at Vegas Hockey Hub. So YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We are on all platforms you can think of. And then we also have our social media page. So if you want to follow me on social media at IANJRACHIELE, Ian J. Rachiele, if you want to follow your host. And this matchup here, final game at T-Mobile Arena. If you saw a guy wearing an orange shirt because he lost a bet earlier in the season, it would be your host, Ian Rachiele. Now, getting into the game itself, you have a team in the Anaheim Ducks. They're rebuilding. They have a lot of young players in the starting lineup for this final game. For example, just to name a few, I'm not going to go through all of them, but Leo Carlson, you got Cutter Gutierrez, you've got guys, for example, like Lundstrom, you have Trevor Zegras, Lacombe. Like, there's so many young players. Their goaltender, who's going to be their goaltender of the future, and Lucas Dostal. And Anaheim is an organization, 27 wins on the year. And they are really just looking forward to next season, seeing what the offseason brings, seeing what the draft brings for Anaheim. So that's the tail of the tape for them. And then over in Vegas, they're playing essentially to figure out, okay, is it going to be Dallas or is it going to be Edmonton kind of ordeal? And, you know, based off of what happened at the end here, we know what the final outcome was. But for the Vegas Golden Knights, really interesting to see what the lineups were for this game and really for the final matchup of the 2024 season. Line 1, Ivan Barbashev, Jack Eichel, Jonathan Marchessault. Line 2, Paul Cotter, Pavel Dorofeyev, and Tomas Hertl. And then on line 3, Brett Howden, Michael Amadio, William Karlsson. Line 4, Nick Waugh, King Kolazar, and Giannis Roundbeer. Defensive pairings will be Nick Hague, Noah Hannafin, Braden McNabb, Shea Theodore, Zach Whitecloud, and Alec Martinez. So really interesting to see what happens there. I mean, considering, once again, this is the final game of the 2023-2024 season. And, you know, for the Vegas Golden Knights, really interesting season. This has been one heck of a journey. And by the way, this is the final game of our first season doing Vegas Hockey Hub Recap. So even though this is season 2 of Vegas Hockey Hub, this is our first attempt at doing a recap of every single game in the Vegas Golden Knights season. We have re-upped for next year. So for season 3, which will be our upcoming 2024-2025 season, we'll be doing our season 2 of Vegas Hockey Hub Recap, just like we did this year. And really excited to continue doing this PR Connections Radio. Thank you to Mr. Dawson and everybody on behalf of PR Connections Radio for helping us create this platform and getting this show on the ground. So, with this being the final game of the season at T-Mobile Arena, and the starting goaltender for this game, there is no back-to-back. The rotation is kind of what we thought was going to happen. as Aiden Hill would be in net for the Vegas Golden Knights to play this game out against Anaheim. Now, their most recent matchup against Colorado, Aiden Hill, he stepped in and he did a very decent job when they won that game in overtime, 4-3. And he struggled out the gate. That first period was a bit suspect, but he did get better as the game went on. And he did a really solid job in terms of building up his confidence and really saving the amount of shots and opportunities in the second and third period. So for Aiden Hill, being in net at T-Mobile Arena as the Vegas Golden Knights would take on the Anaheim Ducks. And what I found interesting about this game is that with it being the final game of the season, it wasn't as packed as I really thought it was going to be. This is a game that they had 18,100 people, but we have seen it get to like 18,500. We have seen even sometimes maybe getting to around 19,000 if you have all the way up there in the Hyde Lounge. So, yeah, for the final game of the season for the Golden Knights and the Anaheim Ducks, the attendance numbers and everything like that, really interesting to talk about because, like I said, when it came to attendance, 18,100 is what it was in this game. And just for example, if you compare it to what we had in the most recent matchup, and that was the one that we're going to be talking about, where we did our Vegas Hockey Hub recap show against the Chicago Blackhawks, even looking at the attendance of that game, where the Chicago Blackhawks and the fans were loud and passionate, there was almost like 200 plus in attendance compared to what this game was. So not completely full tonight for the Anaheim Ducks and the Vegas Golden Knights game. So moving into the game itself, as they would kick off at T-Mobile. In the first period between these two teams, there was not much to be talking about in terms of action. There were a few shots that you could go into detail and go into way too much and kind of narrow it down and break it down step by step. But let's just keep it simple and straight to the point. In the first period, no penalties for Anaheim. No penalties for Vegas. So no power play opportunities for Vegas or Anaheim. And then when it came to the shots and amount of goals that could be scored in the first period, outside of one instance, there really wasn't a great shot in the first period that had really a chance to go in, except for one notable one I'm going to talk about. There was a shot from Jonathan Marchessault that just went wide right from Dostal. And, maybe that could have gone in if there would have been a redirect, if there was something like that that could have been plausible, then maybe you could have had, a goal there. But outside of that Jonathan Marchessault opportunity, there was really no action and anything notable that you could talk about from the first period. Between Anaheim and Vegas, Aiden Hill, he did a really solid job in net out there in the first period. And for Dostal, he did a real good job in the first period as well. So, when it comes to all of that, yes, you do have to give credit. You do have to acknowledge all of that. However, I will say when it comes to all the shots and everything, that first period, you had 5 shots on net for the Anaheim Ducks organization. And then for the Vegas Golden Knights, you had 12 in the first period. So, yeah, like I mentioned, outside of that Jonathan Marchessault situation and then maybe a backhand from Ivan Barbashev, there really just wasn't a grand opportunity for the Vegas Golden Knights out there in the first period. However, moving over to the second period of the game, there was some very interesting opportunities as the second period would actually open up for the Anaheim Ducks, and they would have 12 shots on net, whereas the Vegas Golden Knights in the second period, they ended up having 16 shots. And in that second period, one of them did connect for the Anaheim Ducks, as with about 5 minutes into the second period, you're going to hear his name very often in this video as the Anaheim Ducks went up 1-0 thanks to, immaculate Italian noises, as somebody on Twitter would say. assisted by Cam Fowler and Ryan Strome. It would Frank Vetrano. And this guy, 35th goal of the season for him. And this will not be the first or last time you are going to be hearing his name in this video. Arguably been the best player the Anaheim Ducks have had this year. You have all the young talent. You have so much youth on this roster. But to have a veteran and someone who's really stacking up goals this season in Frank Vetrano, and this is a 1-0 game to start this out. And then out there in the second period, there would be 3 penalties in the second period. Michael Amadio would go to the box for a hooking penalty, and it would create that power play goal for Frank Vetrano. And then later on, there would be 2 penalties on the Anaheim Ducks. One of them would create a power play situation that would turn into a goal. And the first penalty would be Ryan Strome slashing Pavel Dorofeyev. And then the second one would be a high sticking penalty against Gustav Lindstrom. So after having those 2 penalties in the second period with about 2 minutes left in the second, you would have, for the 31st time this season, Jack Eichel with his 31st goal of the season, assisted by center William Karlsson and defenseman Shea Theodore. And towards the end of the second period, the Vegas Golden Knights would be tied up at 1 between the Vegas Golden Knights and Anaheim Ducks. The energy level was pretty consistent after this goal. Heading into the third period, there was some good stuff you're going to talk about. And more importantly, Jack Eichel, 31 goals on the year. William Karlsson in the previous game getting it to 30 goals on the year. And Jack Eichel, William Karlsson, obviously we know about Jonathan Marchessault. But yeah, those have been really your elite goal scorers this year for the Vegas Golden Knights, and seeing what that leads to moving forward. And after the end of the second period, they would take, a bit of a breather, and then they would go back into the locker room for the start of the third period. They would skate out, and not even 1 minute into the third period, the Anaheim Ducks would get on the board and take the lead for the Vegas Golden Knights, as Leo Carlsson and Cutter Gutierrez, they would have an assist here, and then there would be a goal scored. Jackson Lacombe, and, second goal of the season for him. And really interesting to see how he develops with the Anaheim Ducks. This is someone who actually, I do think, has a lot of upcoming talent in the NHL. This guy was drafted a few years back in the second round by the Anaheim Ducks. So for someone who's not even 24 years old yet, this is someone who's played a full season for the Anaheim Ducks this year, had a cup of coffee the year prior. But for Jackson Lacombe, this is his second goal of the season for Anaheim. And you can really see the youth movement in Anaheim just with this line and this stat sheet alone. Jackson Lacombe, Cutter Gutierrez, and Leo Carlsson, all 3 young guys, are going to be a vital part of the core for the Anaheim Ducks moving forward. And, wow, you really have to sit here and look at, for example, Leo Carlsson. He's not even 20 years old yet, and he has been helping out the Anaheim Ducks over this past season. And then you also have Cutter Gutierrez, who they acquired from the Philadelphia Flyers when they swapped him and Jamie Drysdale back in January. So when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights being down 2-1 against the Anaheim Ducks, really the interesting story that came out of everything is the youth movement in Anaheim. But let's get back to the goal scoring, because your Vegas Golden Knights would let up another goal not even 1 minute later, as for the second time in the game, Frank Vetrano, with his 36th goal of the season, assisted by Trevor Zegras and Ryan Strome, and it would make it a 3-1 game for the Anaheim Ducks. And, this is a reason why he's been one of the best players at Anaheim over the last couple of seasons. Not only does he light up the lamp, and does he not only score goals for the Anaheim Ducks, but in terms of consistency, I don't think there's anybody who has benefited more from signing with Anaheim. I mean, this guy has had near 60 goals in the past 2 seasons since joining Anaheim. And almost 60 goals. This guy has around 100 points in his career in Anaheim. So for Frank Vatrano, this is a very good game for him. And second goal of the game for him, 36th of the season for Frank Vatrano. And, you know, the Vegas Golden Knights unfortunately started to lose a little bit of steam after these two goals. And after a quick penalty to Troy Terry, where he had a hooking penalty for the Anaheim Ducks, they would be on the power play. And Jack Eichel, he had an opportunity. It was a good wrist shot. It was on the left side. And the pad of Lucas Dostal just connected. All right, if it had been just a few inches higher, that would have been a goal by Jack Eichel. It did not. That power play ended up not working for the Vegas Golden Knights. So overall, 1 for 3 on the power play for your Vegas Golden Knights. And then with about a minute left in the third period, Bruce Cassidy would pull Aiden Hill, create an empty net situation. And hey, once again, welcome back, Frank Vatrano with his 37th, assisted by Jackson Lacombe. And it would be a 4-1 game for the Anaheim Ducks. And that would be the victory bell for Anaheim. They'd pick up their last win of the season. And the Vegas Golden Knights heading into the next stage of the NHL, they enter that with a loss. Now, unfortunately, this stuff does happen. You can't win every single game. You would love to win the last game of the season, but you're in the playoffs. You're going to the next stage. You're going to the next round. And this is going to be a Vegas Golden Knights team that is going to be really focused on what the next matchup is going to be. And 45, 29, and 8 is the final record of the season for the Vegas Golden Knights. And if you want to look at it like the NBA, they have 45 wins and 37 losses on the season. So they essentially finished 4 games over 500, your Vegas Golden Knights. And, you know, listen, this is not the worst season the Vegas Golden Knights have had, clearly, because they missed the playoffs one year. But no one is going to sit here and say that the Vegas Golden Knights had a dominant season this year. Plenty of blown leads late in the season. That's actually become a trait that a lot of people are kind of hoping that they would get rid of. However, something I do have to mention about the Vegas Golden Knights is that they did not get to 100 points this year. They were only 2 points off. So if they would have won this game against Anaheim, they would have gotten to 100. Instead, they are at 98 points. And when you consider the difference between this year and last year, they've had a difference of 13 points from the year prior. In terms of wins, the Vegas Golden Knights had 7 less than they did the year before. And in the Pacific Division, they were first in 2022-2023, fourth in 23-24. And, you know, this is really an interesting situation where the Vegas Golden Knights were only 4 points higher than what they did 2 seasons ago when 94 points kicked them out of the playoffs. And outside of the COVID-shortened 2020-2021 season where they only had 82 points, but granted, they played 56 games, this is a Vegas Golden Knights team that in terms of points is the third most in their franchise history. The only 2 that are better was in 2017-2018 when they had 109, and then in year 6 when they had 111. So 98 points on the year for your Vegas Golden Knights and fourth in the Pacific. Now, in terms of goals for your Vegas Golden Knights, 267 goals on the season, only 5 less than the year prior. Goals allowed, unfortunately, 245 on the year. They had 229 the year prior. And when you're really going to sit here and look at the statistics for the Vegas Golden Knights for this season, there is, of course, the player of the game. And we've been doing this all 82 games. And the person that's winning player of the game, ironically, is ranked second in our player of the game category. Now, this player has gotten player of the game 10 times this season on Vegas Hockey Hub Recap. And after scoring the one and only goal on the season our player of the game goes to Jack Eichel. And for Jack Eichel, this is someone who really has earned what he has done this season. And I really like what he did in this game. He had those 6 shots. He had that 1 goal and almost had a second goal on that power play opportunity. But what I can appreciate about the player of the game is that when it came to player of the year, and this is something funny to you, there was so many people that had, like, for example, Jack Eichel had 10 player of the games. Shea Theodore had 8. Mark Stone had 7. But there was one person that throughout this season has accumulated 12 player of the game at the end of every single Vegas Hockey Hub recap. And he is our player of the year. So at the end of the season, we do this. Now in 2022, 2023, that ended up being Chandler Stevenson. But for 2023, 2024, your Vegas Hockey Hub's player of the year goes to Logan Thompson. And Logan Thompson this season, when you really study what he did this year, 25 wins, 14 losses, and 5 overtime losses, a goals against average of 2.70, and a 91% save percentage. Once again, these stats all come from hockeyreference.com. It kind of makes a lot of sense why he was voted player of the game 12 times on throughout the 82 times we did our Vegas Hockey Hub recap, especially in December and January when he was an ultimate Iron Man and he was helping the Vegas Golden Knights every single night bail each other out and get wins. So moving forward here on Vegas Hockey Hub as we're doing our recap show, what's next for your Vegas Golden Knights, right? You know, what is next for Vegas? Because this is going to be an organization that you have the Dallas Stars. You officially have clinched the Dallas Stars in the playoffs. So you're going to have the top seed in the West in the Dallas Stars, and you're going to have the second and final seed in the wild card, the Vegas Golden Knights. And this is going to be a really incredible series. Now, I will say that tomorrow we're going to be uploading our first round preview, talking about the Vegas Golden Knights and Dallas Stars series. We're going to cover everything about that on tomorrow's episode of Vegas Hockey Hub at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central. So stay tuned for that. Bookmark that if you can. But when it comes to Vegas, the goaltending, I wonder if the rotation, if it's going to be LT and Aiden Hill. Are they going to have just Aiden Hill? Is it just going to be Logan Thompson? Kind of interesting to see what the rotation is going to be there. And then with Mark Stone, him being back come playoff time, it'll be curious to see who gets taken out of the lineup. Because Paul Cotter is in his spot right now. Brett Howden has been in that spot before. Michael Amadio has been in that spot before. And with Tomas Hertl coming back, it kind of opened up opportunities for the Vegas Golden Knights. However, I do want to mention this to you. Anthony Mantha is listed as day-to-day. Chandler Stevenson is listed as day-to-day. Alex Pietrangelo has been out. William Carrier has been out. There are some injuries that have been affecting the Vegas Golden Knights. And if we're going to sit there and talk about it, this is a Vegas Golden Knights team that when you bring back a Mark Stone, and let's say you bring back Stevenson, all right? Let's say Stevenson does come back and he does play those games. It's just going to be fascinating to see who plays and who gets taken out of the lineup. Now, I have heard reports and the possibility that it could be Anthony Mantha. Anthony Mantha, after being acquired at the trade deadline, they would take him out of the lineup. I really hope that's not the case. However, I would not be surprised if that does happen. You also have players, for example, like Paul Cotter. He could be someone who would be a casualty there. He would not be in the starting lineup. I could see that being happening. Giannis Roundbeer probably be optioned or sent down to the AHL when somebody does get called up. Or it could maybe be maybe one of the younger guys on the roster. You know, there's some young guys like Zach Whitecloud. He might be taken out. Nick Hague, even though I think that he should be on the postseason roster, him being younger, opening a spot for Pietrangelo, and then Alec Martinez, him being on the roster as well. So it'll just be interesting to see what the defensive pairings are, what the forward lines are. But what really fascinates your host, Ian Rachiele, is the goaltending tandem. Because I have made an argument that if it's a 7-game series, then it should be Logan game 1, Aiden game 2, Logan game 3, Aiden game 4, Logan game 5, Aiden game 6, and then whoever the best performing goalie between the two are, they play in game 7. That is what your host, Ian Rachiele, would do. I'm not saying that's what Bruce Cassidy is going to do. I'm not implying that that's what Kelly McCrimmon or George McPhee is going to do. However, it is what Vegas Hockey Hub would recommend. Now, this is the final show of the 2023-2024 regular season. And I just want to give props, by the way, to 3 players for this season. I want to give a lot of credit to Michael Amadio. Michael Amadio, 14 goals and 27 points on the year. This is someone in Michael Amadio who this season has really managed to kind of elevate himself from the year before. He played more games than he played in the year before. And he actually got 2 more assists than he did the year prior. So when it comes to Michael Amadio, I like what we saw from him this season. I will say, even though he's had his faults, even having someone like Braden McNabb play every single game this season is so valuable to the Vegas Golden Knights. Having someone like Braden McNabb who suited up and had not only a plus 18, but had one of the most blocked shots in the NHL. His wins above replacement is among the best on the entire Vegas Golden Knights roster. And more importantly, this is someone who you put him with Korzak, it works. You put him with Hanifin, it would work. You put him with Haig, it's worked. You put him with Theodore, it's worked. Braden McNabb is someone you can trust as a defensive pairing. So Braden McNabb, I acknowledge him. I acknowledge Michael Amadio for how well he did in the middle 6. Of course, Jonathan Marchessault, 42 goals on the season. He just came 1 goal shy of tying William Karlsson. And for a guy like Jonathan Marchessault to get near 70 points on the year, I have to give him all the props in the world, because Jonathan Marchessault had an amazing season here in Vegas. And then lastly, I do have to say, even though he wasn't player of the year, Jack Eichel, even though he did miss 19 games on the year, and Nick Waugh had to fill in for those games, still having 31 goals and 68 points on the year, him eclipsing over a point per game. Now, I will point out that if he had played all 82 games, that he would have had 87 points on the year. So for 87 points on the year, if he would have played all 82 games, that is an incredible pace for someone like Jack Eichel. It's why he was the all-star for the Vegas Golden Knights before he got injured. So Jack Eichel, he deserves his accolades. And you know what? Even though there are going to be people who kind of question what he is going to do come playoff time, you also have to acknowledge Bruce Cassidy for his coaching. Bruce Cassidy, really solid job as a head coach, top 3 coach in the NHL right now. And overall, when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights, you can really sit here and acknowledge to some people that this is a Vegas Golden Knights team that is ready for the future. And, you know, we'll see what happens between Dallas and in a couple of weeks. We will see how that ends up going down for the Vegas Golden Knights. But I will say, until we meet again for the Stanley Cup playoffs in 2024, until we do our Vegas Hockey Hub recap and recap every single game of the 2024 Stanley Cup playoffs, we're going to do our preview show tomorrow for Vegas Hockey Hub. We're going to do a preview of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll do that separate show also later this week. But until next time, I'm your host, Ian Rachiele, and continue watching hockey. Go support junior hockey, and go Knights, go.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at PR